New blog 19. The new day dawned. I woke up in my old room early. It had been a pleasant sleep, with dreams I couldn't quite remember. I got up and went down into the garden. The sun was still below the horizon. There was a seat in the new garden where I thought I might watch it rise. Uncle Jacob had put it there for my mother when Ben died. The ground was still a little damp with the early morning dew, and the bushes of bougainvillea were resplendent with their purple and mauve flowers, recovering from the overgrown state the garden had been in. Sitting there, breathing in everything, the sights, the sounds, the smells, filling me up, body and soul. A rim of orange-red peeped through the thin veil of haze at the edge of the world. I watched entranced as the sun grew into a completed orb, its light reflecting in golden sparkles across the surface of the sea. The arrival was a signal for me to go and make sure everyone got breakfast. Perhaps no one was particularly bothered about breakfast that day, but I enjoyed doing it for them anyway. Then it was down to the jetty. There were a lot of townspeople already gathered by the time Andrew's boat arrived, but due to the press of people, it didn't dock immediately. Yeshua was on board, and he directed the boat to a small bay around from the jetty. The crowd surged around on the shore, us along with it. The master spoke to us from the boat, telling us that this was an opportunity to receive the seeds of joy and peace, and to sow them in our lives. That there was a field to plant within us, where we could harvest everything we wanted, the very things which we had searched so hard for in this world. That field is our heart, and we should let the farmer come and do his work, because this was the way to claim our promised inheritance. For so long that promise may have seemed an empty one, but not any more. You have it already with you, the love, the grace, the understanding. All is in you, waiting for you, and you can enter the kingdom of your heart. If you can put aside your carnal mind for a moment and see instead what it has covered over, see what you have always been, and come to your God as that. There were many very unwell people at the back of the crowd. They were too sick to come to Yeshua in that rocky cove. He pointed over to them. The sickness that this carnal world visits upon us is not always so obvious. But however we are, whatever has happened to shape our existence, our duty to our own heart is to try to prepare ourselves. Maybe these sick people need more obvious help perhaps, but all of us come to his table needy. Bring these stricken ones to the square in front of the synagogue. I shall meet with them and you there. He signalled to Andrew to turn the boat around again, and we all turned as well to go back to the square. John and I had been near the front, but now we were at the back of the crowd. They were rushing to the jetty again to meet the boat as it arrived. I was worried at what the crush would mean, with no chance for us to help. "Don't worry, Mary, it is fine," said a voice at my shoulder. I looked around. It was Lammas, and behind him, head partly covered under a shawl, was Yeshua. They must have got out of the boat after everyone had turned the other way. John laughed, and we reached the top end of the square before the crowd had even realized Yeshua was not on the boat. He lost no time in getting to work on the sick that were there, and the gathering crowd formed a respectful circle around, watching. I loved watching the Master working, giving his love to all who needed. We all needed it. Then I became aware that the Pharisees were there. Not just the 3 that had been in the square the night before, but others as well. They were not causing trouble, but watching, along with everyone else, talking softly among themselves and with others around them. I moved a little closer to hear what they were saying. Innocent enough discussions apparently, fair-seeming words that yet belittled all that was going on in front of them. There is nothing unusual or difficult about that. Unfortunately, she shall not continue to get better. I've seen that before. It is illusory. If they only knew, no one will bother. Then they were circulating around the fringe of the crowd, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. There were quite a few, and I recognized some of them from Capernaum. They had probably come to discredit the Master if they could. I went a bit further out to see what they were saying. The voice of reason, telling people that this was just a flash in the pan, here today and gone tomorrow, promising all sorts of impossible things and then leaving without delivering anything worthwhile, raising expectations in people that were clearly unrealistic and nothing to do with the real lives people had to lead, where hard work and the attention to the laws of God and religion were the only way to make things better. Miracles that any trickster could perform, making people think they were better and leaving us to pick up the real burden. So they went on in their reasonable voices, sowing doubt and poison at every opportunity as to what Yeshua was about, even trying to stir some people into anger, I realized, when they found someone who would listen. He shouldn't be allowed to do this. He is taking advantage of everyone's goodwill. We come here and listen, and what does he give but a load of prattle? I bet you he doesn't go hungry. I bet he has never known the suffering that you and I have. It makes me mad to think how gullible he thinks we are. And I struggled to remain calm myself. Yeshua had finished talking to the woman who had lost her husband and her son, the lady I had spoken to the night before. He still knelt beside her, and she looked quite different now, thoughtful, but not miserable as she had been. He looked up, a hand still resting on her shoulder, and I knew he saw what the Pharisees were doing, trying to undo all his work.